Good morning from the seminar room of the Institute for the Danube region and Central Europe here at Wien Alsergrund. My name is Sebastian Schäfer. I'm the director of the IDM, and I have the pleasure to say a few welcome words on our today's event regarding the parliamentary elections in Bulgaria. I have never felt more than Bill Murray than today, because it's something that we do quite frequently, speak about the parliamentary elections in Bulgaria. We've done it in German, in English, in hybrid, completely online. We've done only a briefing, and now we're back to discuss it in a hybrid format. The one constant thing that is turning through this string of events is our partnership with the Karl-Renner-Institut and the Politische Akademie of the VP, which we are very happily implementing for years and years now. And I've just checked that since we started to record and make these events online available, this is the 26th recording of a parliamentary election that we've been doing in just a bit more than 4 years. But of course, Bulgaria contributed to that very much, and we are very happy that we have new people that join this discussion, but also in the course of these events, returning people on the panel, but also in the room. And that's enough from my side. I'm handing over to Sophia Beiter, who will be moderating this discussion today, and introduce to you here also the panelists. I wish us a very good discussion. And as much as I like to see all of you, maybe after that election, we can meet again, maybe a bit later than just a couple of months. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the welcoming address. My name is Sophia Beiter. I'm a research associate at the IDM, and I will be taking you through this panel discussion today. I'm very glad to welcome 3 outstanding experts on Bulgaria today with us. Vladislava Gubalova, she is the senior fellow at Globsec. Thorsten Geissler, he is the director for regional cooperation at the Atlantic Club of Bulgaria. And Tihomir Bezlov, he is senior analyst at the Center for the Study of Democracy, and he is joining us online today. So yeah, thank you very much for joining the discussion. Before we start with the panel discussion, I want to briefly present to you the briefing, and I'll share my screen to give you a little bit of background and overview of the current political situation in Bulgaria and the elections. You can find a briefing on the chairs and also outside on the table. So Bulgaria has experienced some quite turbulent and difficult years. One could maybe even say that since 2021, there was one political crisis after the other. On the 9th of June, Bulgarian citizens will be heading to the polls again for parliamentary elections, and that will be for the 6th time in only 3 years. This time there will also be EU elections at the same time. And yeah, I will just want to give you a little bit of a background to these past years. So until 2021, there was a government in place under the leadership of Gerhard, and Prime Minister was Borisov, who was and is very influential in Bulgaria. But in 2020, there were many protests against this government. Borisov was accused of corruption. And in 2021, he was vetoed out of the government. The government dissolved, and there were new elections in April 2021, and then in July 2021, and in November 2021, because the first 2 rounds didn't bring any success in government formation. In November 2021, after these elections, a 4-party government was formed by PP. So yeah, GERB is I forgot to say, GERB is the acronym for Citizens for European Development of Bulgaria. PP is the acronym for We Continue to Change, DB, Democratic Bulgaria, ITN, There Is Such People, and BSP, Bulgarian Socialist Party. So in 2021, there was this four-party government. Prime Minister was Kirill Petkov. It was quite a difficult government because these parties are all very different. And they were mostly united in their fight against the corruption and their opposition against Bezlov, but they had very many topics, very different opinions. For example, concerning the war in Ukraine, or also the dispute with North Macedonia. So in 2022, ITN left the coalition, and the government was toppled down by a vote of no confidence. So again, we had early elections in October 2022 and again in April 2023, because the 2022 elections didn't bring any success in government formation. And in April 2023, after these elections, actually also many thought that there will be no government formation because the situation was very difficult. But in the end, surprisingly, GERB-SDS, it's a like alliance of two parties, and PPTV, also an alliance of parties, and they decided to form a government. As I said, this was surprising to many because PPTV actually during the election campaign said they will not go into a coalition with GERB-SDS, but in the end they did. And they agreed on a system of rotating prime ministers. So first of all, Nikolai Denkov, he was former education minister and from PPTV, was prime minister. And then after 9 months, he should be followed by Maria Gabriel, who was, before she came back to Bulgaria, she was EU commissioner and then she was foreign minister. But actually this rotation of prime ministers that made this government possible was also the thing that actually led to the downfall of the government in the end, because in March 2024, Nikolai Denkov, after 9 months being prime minister, resigned as planned, but it was not possible to form a new government under Maria Gabriel. The two party alliances couldn't decide on the appointment of certain ministers, and so the government was dissolved, and Rumen Radev, the president, assigned a new role as caretaker prime minister to Dimitar Glabchev, the head of the National Audit Office. And that's the situation right now. He then organized these new elections on the 9th of June, together with the EU elections. So this just as a bit of background. A few more words to the last government that didn't even last 1 year. As I said, it was a coalition of GERB-SDS and PPDP with rotating prime ministers, and they were mostly united in their pro-European approach, and they also had some of the same priorities. So for them, very important was Bulgaria's Schengen accession, where there was also one step done ahead in March 2024 with the establishment of the air Schengen. But of course, Bulgaria is still awaiting full membership. And also one priority was Bulgaria's accession to the Eurozone. Especially for PPDB, also judiciary reforms were very important. There may be two things can be mentioned. First of all, the general prosecutor Ivan Geshev was removed from office, which was a first in Bulgaria. He was accused of corruption. And there were also some amendments to the constitution enacted to limit the power of the Bulgarian president. For example, that means that he now has a list of people he can choose from for a caretaker prime minister, which was not the case before. And now he can choose from a list of only 9 people, I think. You can see here also the seat distribution in the parliament after the last elections. So GERB-SDS with as strongest power and behind PPDP, and also Revival did very well in the last elections. And actually all of these parties that have been after 2023 in the parliament are also running now in the election on Sunday. In total, there are, I think, 20 parties and 11 coalitions that are running. These here on the list are probably getting seats in the parliament again. So GERB SDS, we already talked about, party leaders Boyko Borisov and their conservative, PPDB as more liberal. BSP is the Socialist Party in Bulgaria, and it's but it has also been accused of being Russophile. DPS is the party for the Turkish-speaking and Muslim minority, or generally preferred by them. And here also very interesting is the leader, Delyan Peevski. He is very influential in Bulgaria. He's a businessman and politician and very influential in the media sector and also judiciary and security sector. And I think we'll also talk a little bit about him during the discussion, as he is very closely working together with Boyko Borisov. And he's actually also banned under the Magnitsky Act from entering USA and UK because of his accusations of corruption. And then we have ITN. There is such a people. It's a populist party founded by the entertainer Slavi Trifonov, and Revival, or in Bulgarian Vasrajdane, which is a far-right pro-Russian party, overtly pro-Russian. They actually sent a delegation in 2024 to Russia to meet with Putin's party. And just a few days or a week ago, they actually announced that it would be a good idea to form a new political group inside the European Parliament with the AfD, which is now expelled from the ID group. And then lastly, the polls. So in most of the polls, GERB SDS, but actually all of the polls, GERB SDS is leading. And then the polls differ a little bit because on the second place is either a Revival or DPS or a PPDB. That depends on the poll. So this will be quite a tough race between these parties competing for the second spot. The PPDB lost a lot of votes. And then we have BSP and ITN who will probably make the 4% threshold to enter the parliament. And then we have a few more smaller parties where it's not sure that they will make this 4% threshold. And as you can see, it might be difficult for GERB SDS and a second party that is on one of these second, third, or fourth spots to make a majority. So they might need a third party, which will make government building, of course, even more difficult. And there have been talks and speculations that it might be that GERB SDS, DPS, and ITN will form a coalition. But we will hear more about that during the panel discussion, what our experts think. And with that, I would start with the panel discussion. And I actually, before we talk about the results of the potential results of the elections and also possible coalitions, I would maybe like to ask, especially to those who live in Bulgaria, what the atmosphere is like in Bulgaria at the moment. What are the opinions among Bulgarian citizens? Is there a lot of disappointment, frustration, considering that it's the 6th parliamentary elections in only 3 years? Do they still trust in politics? And also, what do you think regarding turnout? Are Bulgarian citizens still voting in these elections? How high will be the turnout? And maybe we start with our online guest, Tihomir Bezlov.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation. Well, about atmosphere, Bulgarian voters are really tired and exhausted. Moreover, Bulgarian citizens fear that the government will not form again, and that means new early election maybe in September. And according to most of political analysts, Bulgaria is experienced longest political crisis since beginning of transition to democracy in 1990. This is really very long political crisis. About the turnout of officially figures are about 40% participation in parliamentary elections, but actually we have a real problem with the real number of voters. Officially, figures are 6,600,000. But last census showed that Bulgarian citizens are about 6,450,000. This means that the reason is immigration. And actually, real turnout is about 50%, 30, 38, 50. Actually, the opinion poll show the activities in this range.
Thank you. Do you want to follow up on that?
I can, of course, confirm that there is a certain frustration, there's a deadlock, and it cannot be excluded that new government will be formed, but also a lot of people say the political parties will not agree on a coalition that has a working majority. And of course, Bulgaria is going to the polls, as we go to the polls so often that people say, when will we have a real new government that will govern and just administer the country and solve our problems? On the other hand, politics is not everything in a human body's and human being's life. So I would also like to emphasize that life in Bulgaria is also pleasant and peaceful. And I don't live in Bulgaria. I've lived in Bulgaria for 8 years by force, but by choice. And I want to make this point that I'm a bit unnerved that both Romania, I lived in Romania also for 5 happy years, and Bulgaria are not only also mentioned together. They are 2 different countries, and they're not one people, but 2 different peoples. And they're always mentioned in a negative context. There's always something to do with political crisis or corruption or organized crime. And that does not reflect the full reality in these countries. People have a normal life. They go to work. They try to enjoy their lives. Sofia is a pleasant city which has a lot to offer, just as much as Bucharest. So we should not only mention negative aspects, but we should also mention positive aspects, and we should also not overlook that in the long run there is a good development, which is very often overlooked. I always look at the figures of the World Happiness Index. And of course, Romanians and Bulgarians are not top runners. But compare the figures of 2013 and 2023. A margin of 10 means all the people are completely happy. That's not the case in any other country. 0 means nobody is happy at all. In Bulgaria in 2013 was under 4. Now it's already 5.4. So we should look at these countries also from another perspective and look at everybody's ordinary lives. And there are a lot of wonderful things in these countries. Sofia is a great cultural life. It has good shopping facilities. It has restaurants. People try to enjoy their lives. And we must also not overlook that the participation in elections is low in all the countries, the post-socialist countries. It's not just the Bulgarian and Romanian phenomenon. And trust in institutions is low. I mean, I'm German. Look at the 2 parts of Germany. It's still big difference between East and West. Confidence in institutions, much higher in the West than in the East. Participation in political elections, higher in the West. And party affiliations are stronger. So it is a country in transformation, and Bulgaria was in a very difficult position because also in the social times it was the poorest country of the Warsaw Pact. And so we should also respect what the people managed to achieve after 1990.
Thank you. Going back to the potential election results. So it's pretty clear that Gerhard will probably be on the 1st place, but who do you think will be on the 2nd place, and what are potential coalitions? And will we see Boyko Borisov back as prime minister? Maybe we start with Vladislava.
Sure, I can start and then we can roll the ball. There is actually a new poll that came out today, I believe, and we can see that for the 2nd place, we don't know because 3 parties are very much equal. We have 15.6 for PP at the moment and DB we have 15.4, I believe, and it's decimal point, so I'm sorry if I am not saying exactly, but for the DPS, and then we have, I'm sorry, for Revival and DPS at high 14%. So this is within the margin of error, and of course we cannot claim here, looking at those results, who will be. The thing is that all three of them have very equal chances. And then the question is, yes, so if we have that, if we have the socialists, if we have the Slavi Trifonov's party, there is also a slight potential actually for a newcomer to enter the parliament, because it seems that this last week has been very dynamic in catching and capturing votes, or people are starting to make their mind. There are three, as you pointed out in your little graph, but two, especially Blue Bulgaria and Solidarna Bulgaria, which are coming from movements connected to the municipal elections and in Sofia specifically. So it's interesting to see how the vote in Sofia might be very important this time around because of the surgence, the last minute surgence of these parties. What type of coalitions? Yes. Is it totally impossible that suddenly GERB and PPDB would not join forces again? We've seen it happen before. Is it probable? Probably not so much. But what you pointed out and already was said, that it is very hard to find a common issue, one big goal, the light in the tunnel, which we've had in the past as countries from Central and Eastern Europe moving towards accession, let's say, of the EU or NATO joining. You know, this really was driving us in a much concrete way. But I agree, there is such a division in our societies at the moment. There is also in Bulgaria, but not only, we can see this disappointment of the citizens from the lack of professionalism even among the politicians, among the policies that have been actually voted on, but how are they implemented further down the road? And it's not surprising, and of course, that we see this low number, 17% trust in the parliament, 19% trust in the government. 53% of the Bulgarian citizens claim that the media is not free, and they turn into alternative media. So there are quite a few factors seeing that these coalitions may be hard to put together. Can Boyko Borisov be prime minister again? There are two opinions. In one sense, he has been upping his price. That it's starting again, even those that have voted for some time in the past 3 years or been disappointed by GERB are starting to think and look at that party as somewhat of the most constant presence, and it's starting, this war of attrition is starting to be won, in my opinion, by them to some extent. But it could be also possible that at the end of the day, as usual, as his personality is, will be, the people wanted me, Brussels called me, Ursula von der Leyen came to me in Plovdiv, but yet I will give this position for the people, for a better future of Bulgaria. So it can be played this way. I wouldn't be surprised. And we don't know yet what Maria Gabriel actually is planning to do. It's very quiet around her. So that would be a possible way to also try to form a coalition with a personality that it's not Boyko Borisov or Delyan Peevski.
Thank you. Maybe what do you think?
Yeah, and the election results are not fully predictable, as you said. It's too close to call. The last election, was a bit more predictable. This time, I think that according to the all the opinion polls, it's clear that GERB will become the strongest party, and so will be in the pole position. They will have the first chance to get to form a government. That is the constitution. The last opinion poll sees them closer to 25 than to 26 or 28%, which was also a prediction, some of the most recent opinion polls. Still, they will be the strongest party. And as you said, the number two, who will make it, is open. But according to the last opinion poll, Vasrashny will probably not win as many votes as has been predicted a couple of weeks ago, when they were predicted to get a score of more than 15%. maybe it's a bit lower, but nobody knows for sure, because as you mentioned in your introduction, many people are still undecided. And also it's unclear how many people will really go to the polling stations. A couple of weeks people said everybody's frustrated, will be 40%, maybe even lower. Now, 2 days ago in Sofia Globe, there was a prediction that people could be mobilized by the uncertainty and it could go up. I do not know. I was surprised when I read this, but it's unpredictable. So I believe that maybe PP will become the second largest party. Also, the latest opinion polls does not give DPC, the so-called minority party. It's not an ethnic party, so forbidden in Bulgaria, but it's generally attributed as the voice of the Turkish minority. So, and this will be again a dilemma for PP, DB, for We Continue the Change and Democratic Bulgaria, this coalition, because they cannot satisfy their voters. They were the big hope of many Bulgarians, young people full of enthusiasm. They will change everything for the better in a short time. So, and they said this is an election which they eventually won, but was the beginning of this Vivaldi coalition, the coalition of the four parties. This is good versus evil. Gerb is evil, we are the good ones. So, what is their choice? They can remain in opposition because they say without Gerb we can't form a government, but Gerb is so bad we will never do business with them. Then they can't deliver anything. They will frustrate their voters. Or they go into a coalition with Gerb, which they did. Then people say, you'd always told us they are so bad. Now you're doing business with them. Are you becoming like them? So I think their strategy was not very wise. I think you should always under-promise and over-deliver, and not over-promise and under-deliver. And the expectations were so high that they could never meet them. And also there are now, of course, if you accuse other parties that they are corrupt and they are not competent, these parties will fight back. And they will also say, are you competent? Are you solving the country's problems? Are you free of corruption? And there is, of course, in politics, in the courtroom, you need evidence. In politics, rumors and suspicion are enough to have an impact on public opinion. And now also people saying, PP is also not that clean. And so some of the people who voted for them because they hoped now everything would change for the better, they are either staying at home or vote for one of the other parties. Mm-hmm. And let's not forget that you said where they succeeded, and I think we should all respect that. The judicial reform, the constitutional changes, also they agreed on a budget which will lead to investment. This is not the problem that is the most important one in ordinary people's life. People are worried about inflation. It's now under control, but during the Vivaldi coalition, it was more than 15%. People could feel it every day when going to the supermarket. Its energy prices are going up. And judicial reform is not, it's very important, but it's a subject that is very important for the elite and not for many people who are struggling with their daily lives.
Thank you. Tihomir, Bezlov, what do you think regarding post-election scenarios?
I think we have a few popular scenarios. The number one is you mentioned it is with higher probability. It is Gerb, MRF, ETN. This is Slavi Trifonov Party, ETN. The risk for this option is that ETN cannot enter in the parliament, the parties just in the border. If only 5 parties enter in parliament, this means that we have a redistribution of percentage, and in this situation, maybe it is possible coalition between GERB and MRF. However, Borisov said GERB would not make coalition with MRF alone. This is really very risky. And in addition, Borisov said GERB would negotiation with everyone, including maybe, I don't know, Возрождение, revival. Second option is old coalition, GERB and PPDP, but it cannot happen without support of the third political formation. MRF would able to support this type of coalition, so-called pro-Western coalition, because of line to Ukraine. The problem is that PP, we continue the change, don't want to make coalition with MRF and prefer to be in opposition. In this way, they were able to, they believe that they can rebuild their electorate. However, DB, Democratic Bulgarian, in a favor of a coalition in order to complete the judiciary reform. The third option is technocratic, non-political government. This is an offer of BSP, personally Cornelia Ninova proposal, and in this type of scenario means GERB, MRF, BSP, maybe PPDB, without political figures. In the end, it will be a political government again. They will negotiate to share resources and ministers, but this is the real opportunity. I think if, for example, first option, GERB, MRF, this is DPC, and ITN is not happened. But there are options of new early elections. GERB and DPC agree to such option because they believe that this will result in lower turnout, and this means more percentage for them. Moreover, that they expected that they will control new caretaker government.
Thank you.
This is the four options. I think that maybe the first scenarios is most probable.
Thank you. Yeah, very interesting to hear, because I was actually wondering why PPDB is doing so bad in the polls and why GERB is still doing so well. But maybe it's really because GERB is seen as this only consistent party maybe over the years. And the voters of PPDB are just very disappointed. Yeah. What I would like to talk about a topic that was yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm often asked the questions, why do so many people still vote for GERB? The party was in big trouble a couple of years ago. But now a lot of people say, was it really? I mean, Boyko Borisov has his enemies, but he always had his supporters who really like him. He think he's a strong leader. He speaks the language of the people. They can identify themselves with him. But now a lot of people said, was it so bad? We had stability. There was no inflation, unemployment was low, foreign investment was there. So salaries were not rising as sharply as we would have wanted it, but there was a constant positive development. So, and the others are not solving the problems that they promised to solve also anyway. So why not vote for stability? And I'm always also surprised when GERB is characterized as a populist party, because populist parties usually try to divide the country, and they also work with hate speech against minorities. That is not true for GERB. They are not divisive, and they also never use hate speech. But they are afraid of pushing through reforms that are unpopular. So, and people, this may be negative for the long-run development of a country, but people like it. They will not do any things that will harm our daily lives. So, if there is opposition that is visible, they usually take that into account, look at what they did with the subsidies for the mining industry. There were big demonstrations in the streets. The miners are scared of losing their jobs because the policy of the European Union is to phase out coal and fossil fuels, which I think is right. But it costs jobs in the short run. And so GERB says, no, we must subsidize the mine industry. That will lead to a conflict with the European Commission, but Bulgaria will not only be the only country. It's also in other East European countries. And I would like to make this point later. How can we not be more successful as Europeans in the former socialist countries? But so they follow the people when there is opposition, and so people say it's not a dangerous choice. And as I said before, constitutional reform may be very important for an educated minority that has a deep interest in the country, but a lot of Bulgarians, they don't have a high income. They have problems that need to be addressed that are completely different.
Yeah, thank you. Let's move to one topic that was covered. Sorry.
I wanted to say that actually the GERB keep their votes. GERB not rise their votes. If you look at the data, since 2021, GERB had about 650,000. In the 2023, the maybe 20,000 more. This is the very consistently voting for GERB number, very consistently are voters for GERB. The problem is other parties. For example, PPDB, they really lost maybe half of their voters.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's also GERB has one advantage. They won the last local elections. They lost two important cities. They lost Varna, they lost Sofia, even more important. But most of the mayors in the smaller cities, also in Burgas, also in Plovdiv, are from GERB and in the rural areas. And of course, that's a local power base. And of course, if people are happy with their mayor, they will vote for his party at the national elections. So GERB has a party structure, while elections now are no longer decided in the streets, but in the social media and in the media. This is an advantage. PP never managed to build up a real party structure. So that's a big, big disadvantage.
Mm-hmm. Let's move to another topic. Russian disinformation during the election campaign. What role do you think it played? And maybe we start with Vlad. Sure.
I think that we are all here in the room well informed about Bulgaria enough to know that it's a fertile ground for malign influence, specifically when it comes from the Russian side. Of course, as already mentioned, we have a party that is overtly pro-Russian and is using resources and is taking selfies with the ambassador of Russia and is organizing her trips to monuments around Bulgaria and what have you. The thing is that it is not only the malign influence, the indirect one, it's actually the fact that these pro-Kremlin narratives are normalized somewhat in Bulgaria and have been for some time through even the mainstream media and through a party that rose, as Tihomir was mentioning, so quickly and so heavily in percentages in support, and continues to rise. Actually, they would, I don't know with how many percentages points from last elections, but it will have a new high in these elections as a result. So when you normalize it, it becomes somewhat of a mainstream, and this is with the factor that we still talk about our history, about the Slavic brother that helped us from the Ottoman Empire. This is still present in people's minds somehow. Then we have, of course, our tendencies to believe in conspiracy theories. For example, there are 56% of Bulgarians that believe in average of 3 conspiracy theories, for example. 52% believe that the world is not ruled by the system as we know, by a secret group. And so when you have also this type of thinking, it is much easier and much more fertile ground to push forward different frames and narratives. And we see it again, if you look at the numbers on 23% of Bulgarians, according to our newest Globsec trends, claim still that Russia is our strategic partner. And at the same 25% claim that US is our strategic partner. So you see that it's quite equal in numbers, still perceived about 20-something%, lower 20%, believe that the US is a threat. But I must say that 34% believe now that Russia is a threat. So the number has been increasing. So there is a dynamic a little bit that we can see. But at the end, we still see that Bulgaria is, together with Slovakia, unfortunately, at the moment, among the countries that are most vulnerable to overt and covert influence from Russia.
Well, it's I'm glad that you mentioned why there is fertile ground, and I would like to repeat it. The first thing you mentioned is Russia was the main force to liberate Bulgaria from Ottoman Empire, from 500 years of Turkish occupancy. And every Bulgarian mother tells her children, we have to be grateful to the Russians for this. More than 140, 50 years after that. That's a phenomenon, but it's a reality. The second is the Bulgarians are immensely proud of their alphabet, and they gave it to the Russians. We gave our alphabet to the Russians. Many Germans don't know. They think the Cyrillic alphabet is the Russian alphabet.
And it's also not Bulgarian. It's
Macedonian maybe, but that is,
a narrative.
if we go into history, then...
It's a narrative.
Okay.
It's not Russian, I agree,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Good-
We can,
good-
We want to frame it as a narrative. It's true.
Okay, well, every year, and it just happened, Bulgarians celebrate the day of the Bulgarian alphabet, and it's a public holiday. So if you start this debate in Bulgaria, you should look where the door is to which you can escape. So then of course there is the Orthodoxy, and the Bulgarian Orthodox Church is usually following. It has very close links with the Russian Orthodox Church. Usually follows the Russian Orthodox Church. Bulgarians are not very religious, but they are Orthodox, and they will never. Bulgarian atheists will never leave the Orthodox Church because it also played an important role during these 500 years of Turkish occupation. I mean, it means a lot that Bulgarians were able to keep their national identity during these 500 years, and the Orthodox Church played an important role. Very few Bulgarians converted to Islam, which was quite attractive because they would have a better life. They still like it. It's a minority. So, and of course, pan-Slavism. So, but it cannot be taken for granted after the Russian attack on Ukraine. Russia's popularity, and especially Putin's popularity, had an all-time low. And this, of course, was something that the Russians reacted to. And if there's one thing that I must observe, that they are masters of influencing people's minds through social media and the internet. And I'm still a dinosaur. I collect my information from the internet by surfing on the internet. If I have a doubt, I try to cross-check whether the information is correct. But most people leave it to algorithms, which information they consume. And if the same narrative is repeated again and again, they start believing it. And so this is why this narrative, and you mentioned it, it cannot be a surprise that after 40 years of socialism, there are still anti-American sentiments. That's the same also in the eastern part of Germany. Big difference between East and West. It's, of course, not the case in Poland, with few exceptions. But and not in Romania, but in Bulgaria, that is a fact. And these historic facts play a big role. And so, this is, I must give credit to the old government, and I'm sad that it failed. They had a clear pro-Western course, and they supported Ukraine. They also supported it militarily. And public opinion is opposed to it. 62% are against military support for Ukraine. A small majority is in favor of economic sanctions. And a huge majority is in favor of humanitarian aid for Ukraine, but not military one. So if you look at Bulgaria from a European perspective, what matters is, of course, is it pro-European? Is it pro-European? Is it pro-Ukraine? Is it pro-NATO? And but this is not necessarily the most decisive factor in the Bulgarian internal and the domestic debate.
Thank you.
Could you say something?
Yeah. Do you want to follow up on that?
I want to give you a couple of facts. In some historical data, in 2019, the global survey of Pew Research Center showed that Bulgaria is the country which is most favorable in the world to Russian, 70%. Only Ukrainian before 2014 had more, 80%. About the Putin, again, number one in the world, 60% was they approve Putin, they like Putin. But Ukrainian war changed public opinion dramatically. In first week, Putin became with negative approval rate. In 2 months later, actually Putin was with 25% positive and 65 negative rate. Ukraine changed really public opinion in Bulgaria. By the way, historically, if you look at the Bulgaria history 100 years ago, 120 years ago, in the beginning, we have a huge pro-Russian public opinion, but after the Serbian war, after the couple of historical events, actually the public opinion is split, and anti-Russian mood became more than the half. The situation is changed after 1944, when the Russians develop very good propaganda model through Communist Party. And this is really very different compared to other Eastern European countries. Very effective propaganda. By the way, Bulgaria is one of the testing ground of Russia of disinformation war. This experiment in social media started in 2014, before Ukrainian war, actually. And we see really very effective models of propaganda, disinformation war. By the way, Revival, the pro-Russian party, they succeed to make 60% of interaction in Facebook, 60% from all parties. It was, by the way, in this period, 2002 to 2003. Now they have clear decline, but generally they're super active in social media, and especially in Bulgaria, Facebook, because Facebook is social media #1.
Thank you. Yeah, another topic that was covered during the election campaign a lot was the influence of Delyan Peevski, the leader of the DPS party. So it was said that he's actually working quite close with Boyko Borisov. So Boyko Borisov brings the votes, but he has old corruption sins, which Delyan Peevski is kind of covering because he's very influential in the security service sector, but also in the judiciary and the media. And maybe a question to Tihomir Bezlov again, how influential is he, and how could this also situation evolve and after the elections, if DPS and GERD really form a government, who will be in charge, Boyko Borisov or Peevski?
Again, some retrospection. If he were to be cast in a film, he definitely win a role of the Tibetan evil guy. By the way, he went through a lot of changes. First, he was Borisov's biggest enemy. Then he became his best friend in 2000. In first Borisov government, 2009, 2012. Then he turned into biggest enemy again. Since 2013, he's considering the strongest secret ally. But in 2023, he suddenly turned out to be ally of PPDB. But after MRF fulfilled its mission to give its voter to change constitution, he was again declared enemy #1. This is, of course, to avoid crisis in the party structure of PP and DB. Now, unlike before, it is no longer secret but open ally of Borisov, and his line is really very interesting. It was a lot of analyzers believe that Ahmed Dugan, the MRF strongest man, would turn on him after he was added to Magnitsky list. But Dugan brought him back and made him co-chairman of party. Seemingly demonstratively, he did this. By the way, there is theory that the Bulgarian Turkish voters in Turkey don't like Peevski and won't vote for MRF. We'll see is in June 9. And in this context, I think that maybe MRF can have problem with coalition with GERB.
Thank you. Do you want to follow on?
I just wanted one point to make that for this idea that maybe the not everybody in the party or those that vote for the party would vote for Peevski, but I think that also the DPS is similar to GERB, having very strong and very structured political echelons, right? The structure is very well developed. It's also very streamlined, and so I think that they will be motivated to vote for the party and not so much who is the leader at the moment, because the party
but the problem is the vote in Turkey. We have about 90,000 voters in Turkey, Bulgarian Turks. They are a very important part of
course, but I do think that there is enough networks to also approach them. But it's a scenario, so obviously we will see.
Yeah, I just say some discussion, some rumors.
No, but it seems to be that they can always rely on the votes of the Turkish minority. So that's a solid power base. And if you look at the regional elections where the Turkish minority is strong, DPC is the strongest force. And is the only party of choice for the Turkish minority, and 8.5% of the population are Turkish. Ethnic Bulgarians do not vote for DPC, not because there are ethnic tensions. There are no ethnic tensions between ethnic Bulgarians and ethnic Turks. I've never met an ethnic Bulgarian who said the Turkish people are bad people. Most say they are actually nice guys. But I think Bulgarians don't like the party DPC, and that's also why it's a big risk for one of the parties like GERB or ACP in times when there was still a strong party to form a coalition just with DPC. Their own voters would not like that, would punish them at the next election.
Let's maybe also have a look at the other elections that will take place on the 9th of June, the EU elections. What do you think will be the results of the EU elections in Bulgaria? Will it follow the domestic elections, the distribution of seats in the parliament afterwards? And what can the EU expect from Bulgaria maybe in the next legislative period?
So we have 17 seats to be distributed, and we know from the previous elections in 2019 that so if you look at the families, 7 went to EPP, but this was not just GERB, this was also one additional seat, 2 actually, DSB and SDS that went towards the EPP party. We have 4 that came to SND, and also from the Socialists. Then Renew, actually the Turkish minority party is a member of the Renew family, European family, and those were 3. Then we have the ECR received 2 of the, at that time, nationalists that were also part of the last Borisov's government, VMRO, and then 1 non-attached, which was also from the Socialist Party. What we can see, what we can, I think, predict pretty reasonably is that the biggest loser this time around in seats to the European Parliament will be the Socialist Party. Their votes will be eaten out from what we see in the numbers. It will be eaten out partly by the PP party, which is holding 2nd place. Now, when we talk about the European elections, then GERB, then second place, most likely PP, DB, and then going actually Revival and DPS. So the Socialists will be the biggest ones that probably will lose from the seats. I would say probably maybe 2 will be towards will go to them. But I think that from GERB we will see, because I assume that maybe 1 seat might be also lost and redistributed towards PP or even the Nationalist Party. And I think they will strengthen. They will take 1 seat extra. So it will be. The Nationalists will strengthen with 1 more seat. PP will enter in. They are because they're PP and DB coalition. PP it's more so leaning towards Renew family. European political family, but DB may not be joining that same family. But the list, of course, let's see who enter into the list. So technically, interestingly, if we look at the European parties families, the Renew Party will be the big probably gainer from Bulgaria because of the Turkish Minority Party, as well as the PP are leaning to that family. And it was interesting, and on that note, probably the fact that this past weekend, indeed, Ursula von der Leyen and Manfred Weber came to Bulgaria, came to Plovdiv in a big event, first time together on that campaign trail. And so it's interesting that although there are very few seats, but they're so important because we know in the last elections for a commission president how few votes were needed in the parliament. To get over the threshold. So it is interesting to see that Gerhard is seen as an important party in the European EPP family. So this is how maybe the seats could be distributed.
Mm-hmm.
I have little to add, just concerns the political families. Clear, the GAP CDC will of course be part of the European People's Party group. Interesting is, I mean, PPDB, that is a group of parties. That is Democratic Bulgaria, which once was Bulgaria, a quite new party. Democrats for Strong Bulgaria, always an EPP member, and the Green Movement was part of that coalition. Then, of course, Bulgaria had to make up its mind, will we join the European People's Party or will we join Renew? And they recently announced they would join the European People's Party. Then the Green Movement went out of that coalition. And PP is, of course, in a difficult situation. If they join the European People's Party, they are one family with Gerhard. Which is bad for them. On the other hand, not everybody within the party would be happy to join Renew. Another aspect that I might add is, I can subscribe to everything you said, is that the European elections the result will reflect the result of the national legislative election. There's one thing that is an open question. There's an independent candidate, Gubalova. She was second in the mayoral election in Sofia. She was supported by an alliance of left-wing parties. She got beaten. She didn't get elected mayor, but she got a very good result, which was a personal success. And it was a surprise because in Central Europe, usually the cities vote left-wing and the rural areas vote center-right. The young people vote left-wing, the older people vote conservative. In Bulgaria, like in many other socialist countries, it's the other way around. The cities vote center-right, the countryside votes socialist. The young people vote center-right, the older people vote socialist. So, and Sofia has never been won by the Socialist Party after 1990, and she's got a good result. Will she win 6%? That is the threshold for the European election. That is the open question. Then she will be an independent. Another thing I might add, it's clear which party will join which political family at European level. What about revival? And a couple of days they announced they would invite German AfD to form a new separate right-wing group, Right of ID, which also is telling what their political ideology is. So, of course, we're all watching what the far right is doing, how they're gaining votes in many European countries. But we must also not overlook that the far right is far from being united. They disagree on many issues, and you will never have a common statement on many political topics because you just cannot agree on a common position. And so they're fighting each other. They have ideological differences. So let's see. There's no answer from AfD. I must be fair. I'm not sure whether they will be delighted to get this invitation, but that's what the political affiliation could be.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Bezlov, do you want to add on that?
I think that maybe PP will join to LD. I don't know about DB, and it is not clear how they redistribute in coalition their MPs. Maybe we have the same situation like in 2023 when the DB, through this favorite vote, we have special system to choose your favorite candidate. They succeed to took more MPs than PP. But in case with VB, they maybe prefer to be in European People Party.
Mhm. And do you have any guesses for Bulgarian EU Commissioner?
Well, it will depend also on the government, and maybe Tihomir, if you have some insight.
I think it is not clear. This depends on what happened after election. For example, if we have government would define who will be Euro Commissar. I think in this case maybe somebody from GERB. If we have problem with new government, maybe the parliament. We have the same situation, by the way, in 2023 when Maria Gabriel left his position. Then actually PPDB had one candidate, GERB other, and European Commissar chose GERB's candidate.
Maybe one name possible that it's floating in case, yes, if GERB gets to choose, it's Eva Majdel, who is currently an MEP and she's running again for the campaign. But she's quite known also in the Brussels bubble, and she's been very active when it comes to, let's say, the preparation of the AI Act, innovation and standards for new technology. So this is something that is just floating out there. But of course, I agree with Tihomir. It will very much depend on, do we have the regular government or not, and then how or who will choose to be.
I have a few more questions, but maybe I would open up to the audience if there are any questions. Yes, please.
What I was wondering is, there was a lot of tactical speculations, but what are the issues? Are there any issues? I know from that corruption is always a topic that people discuss, and justice reform is a topic people discuss, but is it an issue in the election campaign, and or are there any other issues that are relevant?
Live in Bulgaria.
Tihomir, do you want to answer that question?
Actually, we have very chaotic campaign, and we don't have a real discussion in last campaign. Of course, the topics corruption is banal in some sense. I think that actually this campaign these topics is almost not in the discussion list.
Well, I'm happy that one topic is not a top priority, and that is the relationship with North Macedonia, because this could become a very emotional issue. I must remind that Bulgaria and North Macedonia were on a good way. Borisov had negotiated a treaty of cooperation and friendship with North Macedonia. Relations were improving, becoming better. Bulgaria was about to pave the way for North Macedonia's entry into the European Union, which would make, of course, a lot of sense. Both countries have common interests, they have common problems, and they are, of course, close to each other. Well, it was the nationalists that poisoned this policy and put pressure on Borisov to adopt a tighter course with regard to North Macedonia. The old questions: what are Macedonian own people, their own, or are they actually Bulgarians? The questions was: is it liberation or an occupation when Bulgarians entered into Macedonian soil in 1945? What about the role of monuments, the protection of ethnic Bulgarians in North Macedonia? And history came up again. As Churchill said, the Balkans produce more history than they can digest. It's sometimes people from both countries sit in one room, and as long as they discuss current problems, the atmosphere is friendly and constructive. If someone mentions history, the fighting starts. And it's impossible to agree on a common position. I'm quite happy that, there are tensions, especially after in North Macedonia, the proposal came up to change the name again to Macedonia, but it's not a top issue in the current campaign, but it can become one again. And so I hope that the modern voices will prevail in Bulgaria and in North Macedonia, of course, as well, so that we can have a good relationship between two countries. I must also give, of course, credit to the Vivaldi coalition, to the four-party coalition that was in place after PP had won the election. One of the first steps of the newly formed government at the time was a visit to Skopje. And the Bulgarian president and his North Macedonian counterparts attended together in international conference. So there is goodwill on both sides, but there are the other forces on both sides who seek confrontation. And this is the least that we need in this region of Europe.
Did you want to add something?
Because I don't live in Bulgaria myself, so I cannot feel the spirit of the campaign. But I think that to an extent I would agree on the earlier remark that the cost of living, the economic situation and the future energy prices, all of this seems to be on people's mind more so. And yeah, maybe the judicial reform is not on their agenda. Certainly in the long term for Bulgaria's future, it is on my agenda. But I would agree with Tihomir. It's very chaotic. There is no, and it's identifiable one issue that is running the campaign of anyone's. It's also quite again short, I would say, even campaign, or the intensity picked up now towards the end. The intensity picked up also through through means of such as revealing recordings, hidden recordings of members of parties talking to each other and so on. So a dirty campaign as well to an extent. So it wasn't about real issues, in my opinion.
Thank you. There was another question there.
As I'm doing, hello. Yeah. As I'm doing the.
Could you comment the North Macedonian topic? This is personal opinion, by the way.
Right?
I think that the story with Macedonia, with Bulgaria veto, is actually Russian active operation. And if you look at the history, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Until December 2020, the topics about Bulgarian veto, about the Bulgarian history, totally absent in the actually 3 weeks before starting negotiation with Macedonia, North Macedonia. Krasimir Karakachanov, the head of PMRO Nationalistic Party, which was the ally of Gerhard in coalition partner in the third government of Borisov. Suddenly, he started to speak about Macedonian history, about the Macedonian language and so on. And actually, he blew up all options of normal procedure. And the President Radev did the same. He started to speak about the topics Macedonian history. And I think it was very clever operation from Russian. Borisov can't afford to vote for Macedonia because it was just before parliamentary election. Our parliamentary election was in March 2021, April 2021, and this was very tricky for Borisov to avoid dissolve of coalition and huge problem for him. Actually, for Bulgaria, topics North Macedonia is very unreal. Nobody care. If you look at after the story with VMRO didn't succeed to enter in parliament. Nobody care about the stopping Macedonia. This is very superstitious topics. And I think now the situation is the same. We don't care about the Macedonia generally.
Maybe we care, but that
But everybody can play the nationalist
We have
card.
very
No, I
weak
mean,
economic.
I meant just, of course, we care about the North Macedonia as a country and people. It's just, it's not on the top of our agenda of saving our own life.
Thank you. There was a question.
A lot of people are emigrate from Bulgaria, and we in Austria, we are going to lose jobs. A1 has built a big building in Sofia, and there are new employees. And I would like to know how high is the salary for a high educated person in Bulgaria. I don't know, IT specialist. I would like to know because the Austrians now have no jobs in the A1 and they have to look for a new job, and that's a big problem. And that's not only one enterprise in Austria who because the enterprises want to save money, and they can only save it if they have low salaries, if they pay low salaries. That's a big problem. And the second one is the 24-hour people who work here, old people in households in Austrian, to look after old people who don't exist alone, can exist alone. And that's also a great problem because the agencies have a lot of salaries, and the people who are affected and work very hard got a low salary. I mentioned it because I'm turning around Austria, and I asked them, and I would like to know, how do you see it in the front of these two social problems? Thank you.
Thank you. Because when we talk about salaries, we must keep in mind there's a big difference between Sofia and the rest of the country. Salaries in Sofia are much higher than in the rest of the country. So that is the first point. And you can make good money in Sofia if you have good qualification, but of course salaries are much lower than in Central Europe.
How is it now?
Pardon?
How about
prices. Yeah, of course, that is an important factor. The cost of living in Bulgaria are much lower than in Austria or Germany, for example. But still, well, it's, if you Bulgaria has one big problem, for example. Most of their doctors would emigrate tomorrow if they got a job offer from a center. The health system would collapse if this happened. We have a big interest, and I also would mention to stabilize Bulgaria, to help Bulgaria, because we'll have immense social problems in that country that will also affect us if people become so unhappy that they leave the country. Bulgaria is losing people. It has lost, look at the demographic development. In huge numbers, 400,000 Bulgarians live in Germany already. Most of them don't live from social aid. They work. No his hospital would work in Germany without Bulgarians or Romanians. No construction site works without Bulgarians and Romanians. So we should also have this in mind when people in Germany or Austria are Eurosceptics and say, well, why do we give so much money to these countries? We have an interest in stabilizing these countries and societies. It's in our best own interest.
Thank you. There was another question. Yes. Do you want to answer?
I want to say that actually we have very sharp rise of average income of salary in the last 2 years. Of course, not like Romania. Romania is champion in this area, but generally, yeah, the Sofia and out Sofia, the salary is very different, but new tendency is that Bulgaria immigration to Western Europe is smaller than in return people in Bulgaria. I speak about last 3 years. Actually, we now have positive development in demographic area. And other interesting topics, this is the same with all Eastern Europe. Actually, Bulgaria started to import the foreign workers. As number one, like source is Central Asia, former Soviet Union, and we have about 50,000 people per year. This is new development in Bulgaria. It started before pandemic, but now we see very sharp increase of the number from number of foreign workers. Estimation that there are some estimation about how many workers Bulgaria need. This is about 200, 300 people, 1,000 people.
Thank you. Camila?
Hi, my name is Kamila Bogdanova, and my question would be regarding Bulgaria and the European Union. As Mr. Geissler said, that the Bulgarian society is kind of polarized between young generation and old generation. Is it also the same about the attitude towards European Union, or are they united in their like old generation and young generation? Because also recently European Commission only partially accepted Bulgaria to Schengen, and Bulgaria is still not in Eurozone. Is the Bulgarian society kind of upset with this kind of development? Is it undermine the attitude, positive attitude to the European Union? Or yeah, I would just like to know more about the opinion and the feelings towards European Union. Thank you.
There's a big majority in favor of EU membership. It's always been the case. Bulgarians appreciate the advantages that European Union membership brings for them. They're all conscious of the immense support they get from from Europe, and they appreciate them. As also they appreciate the foreign investment from foreign countries like Austria or Germany. And by the way, both Austrian and German companies have the reputation of being very good employers. They expect a lot. They also treat their employees well, and they pay well. So that is a fact. And there are, however, different expectations from Europe. Some people say, well, we play a constructive part in the European Union. We were never a troublemaker, but please don't meddle into our internal affairs. While others say, put more pressure on Bulgaria, especially with regard to the rule of law. So also the pro-European community is not without different wings. But they all agree that European membership is beneficial and positive for Bulgaria. There's also a majority in favor of NATO membership, but it's much smaller. And but the main question is also how much is support for parliamentary democracy? This has something to do with with the European Union values. And there was a recent poll that 51% of the population say parliamentary democracy is the best form of rule, the best form of government. That's not a big number. It doesn't mean that 49% say the opposite. There are a lot of people who say, I don't know. But my message is in this context, don't ignore Bulgaria because it's not one of the biggest countries in Europe. Pay attention to it. It is an important country. And it is an ally, and we should pay interest to this country and support it.
Thank you.
Can I add something to this? Of course, there's this positive image in Bulgaria generally to the European Union. But on this particular issue on wages and the companies, I have also the experience that there is a change in the attitude by some people who realize that the companies do come because of the low wages, and the companies have all the interest of keeping the wages low. And this, of course, is what young people react to and say they're exploiting us, which is a strong term, but has some fact has some reason in the reality. So that's why my approach would be that the European Union is right in getting something done on the social side, like the overall minimum wages, and all this needs to be done in order to strengthen the internal market. Otherwise, we're getting this backlash.
Thank you. As we are running out of time, maybe just one last question to all of you, but please answer very shortly. So what is your forecast for Bulgaria after the elections? Will there be a government, or will we face new elections quite soon? Maybe Vladislava, you can start.
Sure. I have forgotten my special magic ball to forget, unfortunately, today. Look, it doesn't look very bright that it will be easy. But in my own personal opinion, I also don't think it's impossible to have a government. My worry is that if any government will be just simply unstable and it will not last the full mandate. And this is unfortunately something that the Bulgarian society is getting used to. Something really has to shake us up, to unite us, or to shape us in such a way that we are able to get the political responsibility, the political professionalism, and then the society itself to get behind that, behind this group of party, being a party, being a personality, being a consortium of groups. But I myself don't see it at the moment. But to finish on a positive side, I think that thinking about the European elections a little bit, I agree that Bulgaria is an equal member of the European Union. It's not a troublemaker, but we have to be indeed careful because it can become one. We've seen in Central Eastern Europe that the governments change and policies change. And so for us, it is important also to look into that European future. I think the issues of the entry into Eurozone, the desire to enter fully into Schengen are non-negotiable in the society as a whole. Eurozone, in society there is, but I think any government stepping in will pursue the goal. And support for Ukraine on the whole, I also don't think that there will be a change in approach as supporting Ukraine as we see it at the moment. But I would expect Bulgaria to be much more voicing its voice when it comes to cohesion funds and the next negotiations for the budget. Very big supporter of nuclear energy for a change, of course. How it's perceived here in Austria, and yeah, I would expect that their voice will be heard, and even if not the approach change towards North Macedonia and the commitment that the constitution of North Macedonia needs to change in order to actually start the accession process. I have a little bit of a nudge of worrying if ITN becomes a member of the government, that slightly may worsen actually the attitude of the Bulgarian government towards North Macedonia. But besides that, let's see. Let's all that can go vote and vote with a clear conscience of what's important for Bulgaria.
But it's, I'm also not a prophet, and I'm sorry. It is possible that a government will be formed, but one condition is, of course, that Gerhard finds a third partner if it becomes the governing party. And I can hardly imagine how a government could be formed without Gerhard. But we have three parties that have a chance to get over the 4% hurdle, but it can't be taken for granted. So there is a possibility, but can also, I mean, it depends on how much the time the president gives the parliamentary parties to negotiate, because once he has started the process and gives the mandate to form a government, the party that has the mandate has 1 week. And that is a very short time. When the week is over, the second largest party will be visited. They have 1 week. And then it is up to the president to which party he gives the third mandate. If it's unpredictable. It's also possible that we will have another election this year. I hope not, because people are, of course, frustrated with the political parties. The political parties have their supporters, but the party system itself is, of course, not perfect. And I hope that, I mentioned the 51% that fully stand behind the principle of parliamentary democracy. It should be a warning signal to all Democrats. Can easily get under 50%. And we have this tendency in all European countries, that also in Germany, and I think also in Austria, that a growing number of people say the political system doesn't deliver. And what we need is a strong man. It's always a strong man, never a strong woman, that leads the country in the best interest of all. This cannot work. You cannot govern a country in the best interest of all. There will always be social conflicts that have to be addressed, and where the different interest groups have to find a compromise. And we have very poor and bad experience with strong men in Europe. But that is a real risk, at the point of concern. And so I hope that a government will be formed. But I share your assessment. It will not be a stable one. So, but there are so many problems that need to be addressed, and the powers of an interim government have been limited. So they can administer, they can prepare the next election, they can do the work that needs to be done to prepare the next government to do their job. But it's not a real government. And I don't believe in expert governments. They are popular, but there is no expert who can say, I am the only expert. There will be, if you have an expert on social policy, people will say, I'm right. And there will be 90 others in the room who says he's wrong. We're also expert in social policies. That's why we are not governed by expert commission, but by politicians who listen to experts, the different experts, and try to figure out what is the right position.
Thank you. And Tihomir Bezlov, what do you foresee?
It is difficult to predict, but generally, I hope that we have more than 50% chance to have government. I hope. By the way, I think that from positive point of view, that Bulgaria choose democratic way. We are, I think, far away from, for example, Erdogan model or Orban model. Maybe we are now near to Fico model, but generally we understand that democracy is something important. Every 4 years we are going to do election, or even we don't succeed, make again and again. But generally, we don't like this authoritarian model, even with 3 governments of Borisov.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for all your insights and a very interesting panel discussion. Thank you to Vladislava, Gubalova, Thorsten, Geissler, and Tihomir Bezlov. Please, a big applause for our panelists. Also, thank you to Sebastian Schäfer for the welcoming address, to Daniel Martinek for helping with the live stream, and of course, again, to our cooperation partners, Political Academy and Karl-Renner-Institut. And this panel discussion was streamed online and will also be available afterwards on our YouTube channel. And of course, we're very happy if you follow us on social media or sign up for a newsletter or become even an IDM member. And yeah, thank you very much for coming and joining the discussion.
Herr Geissler, schön, dass wir uns wiedersehen. Das freut mich wirklich. Was ist denn jetzt? Ich sitze in Sofia. Ach, noch in Sofia, ja.